Welcome to Truth by Billie Beene. Today's date, September 4, 2025. Time in Texas about 5 p.m. It's time, baby, to prep and have some cash and definitely have some self-protection, because it appears that it's very likely that the U.S. military is going hot just over the U.S. border. So some of my sources are God in the Bible, Patriot Subscriber, Fleet Signal, Hal Turner, Monkey Works, New York Prepper Plus. President Trump gives a prep order for the U.S. military, and the U.S. military will be drawing down money and troops from Europe. So let's get started. So we have, I'll begin with what is the weather, because the weather in the Atlantic is going to be crucial to our coming U.S. war effort. And we do have this area off of Africa. I believe it's, let's see, 60% chance development in 48 hours and 90% in 7 days. This would be Hurricane Gabrielle. It's moving forward at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and it's moving west. So it's moving in the direction of the U.S. Space weather. We will have on September 6th a G1 low-level geomagnetic storm based on interaction from the solar wind. We have Atlas giving out carbon dioxide appearing blue in the sky, and more weird information is coming out about Atlas. We have flash traffic this afternoon from Hal Turner. President Trump has given the order to prep, and this is for the U.S. military, to prep to bomb Mexico. So yeah, we're going hot. The next step, he gave the order for the U.S. military this afternoon to prep to bomb Mexico, the cartels. The next step would be for President Trump to give the attack order. We do not know when that will be forthcoming. It is being put forth that this hit on Mexico by the U.S. military may trigger the embedded illegals and cartels in major U.S. cities to attack American citizens inside the homeland. So if you have self-defense items, it would be good to, know where they are, be able to put your hands on them. And since this is coming out in somewhat of a public way, it's not classified information, his order for the U.S. military to prep to bomb, bomb Mexico, then we would assume we're going to be seeing some action possibly inside U.S. cities. Now, Monkey Works had put out a great video yesterday tying Venezuela and also Epstein. Monkey Works seems to think that Epstein may be hiding out somewhere in this area. We don't know. We do know we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 warships. Plus we have 2 nuclear subs in this area. And we have Coast Guard ships with Coast Guard and law enforcement on them who could make the arrest. We saw yesterday thousands of pounds of drug material sent from CCP, China, allegedly to go to Venezuela. We saw the U.S. military, most likely it was the Coast Guard, who entered 2 ships here and offloaded the thousands of pounds of drug material, and it then was taken to a port city, Pasadena, Texas. Last night I saw the Washington, D.C. attorney, Janine PERU, standing. They took 1,300 barrels of drug material. She was standing in a warehouse in either Pasadena, Texas or Houston, Texas, where they had been moved. Now, WERX brings this out. I found this very interesting. Yesterday, we have no more P-8 planes in the air over the Gulf of America, Caribbean. I interpreted that to mean that the U.S. military now knows and has mapped out all of the targets they will hit. And then this afternoon, we get that information that President Trump has given the order to the U.S. military to prep to bomb Mexico. We have this from New York Prepper. Today, we had going to Washington, D.C., hundreds of U.S. military armored vehicles. And President Trump has already put in D.C. 2,000 National Guard. I had put that out. Possibly he was beefing up the U.S. military in Washington, D.C. If this situation against the cartels went hot, then a likely target by the cartels would be Washington, D.C. And today, New York Prepper's channel showed hundreds of armored vehicles rolling into Washington, D.C. via train. So we see that going on. Now, in my last video, I put out that the delusional president of Venezuela, Maduro, contradicted President Trump's statement that the U.S. had sank a cartel boat that was on its way to the Trinidad Tobago area, and said their video of it being sunk was CGI, computer-generated image, even though President Trump and his public presser said he had been informed by the Department of Defense and General Kane, head of the Joint Chiefs, that this hit had been made. Maduro said it didn't take place. Now we have today a statement from the president from Colombia. If it happened, then if true, it would be murder, even though, hey, those cartels moving those drugs to America to kill American children. So, President of Colombia, your time is coming too, I would reasonably speculate. Now, we heard that Venezuela and Colombia had put troops along their border. I believe Colombia put 25,000, Venezuela put 15,000, it's 40,000 troops along the border between Venezuela and Colombia. But hey, what's going on in Mexico, I wonder? With this information coming out, we will see. And we have this. Yes, today there was a meeting in Paris, Coalition of the Willing. The European nations, NATO want to go against Russia. And President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, 20 minutes into the meeting, got up and walked out. Apparently, what he was hearing, he also, like the statement from Maduro, delusion. I believe these European leaders were also putting forth delusional statements like, we'll send our troops into Ukraine, because it's also being noted that yesterday, Russian President Putin said Russia will not allow foreign troops into Ukraine. And now, just a few minutes ago, we have this information coming out from Intel. The U.S. is cutting money and troops to Europe. And this comes under a certain segment of money. It will be cutting all money for equipping and training Eastern Europe militaries, and the U.S. military will be withdrawing their troops from the front line. That's the Baltic states, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania. Way to go, President Trump. The American people do not support war in Ukraine against Russia. We want money, troops, intel stopped. And look, we're about to have on our soil and adjacent to the United States of America, war. We need our troops home. So that's going on. And now we have this. Yeah. So we had some information coming out from Fleet Signal that the U.S. military has already hit the cartels in Peru as they were going to Bolivia and Brazil. So there are cartels all over South America. So this happened just a few days ago, August 27. We had U.S. military Delta Force and the U.S. Air Force. I believe their command center was in Florida for the strike that took place August 27 from like 1 a.m. in the morning to 5 a.m. in the morning. They hit a cartel convoy, 40 armored vehicles, with 250, they call them Sicaros, assassins, and they had also man pads to take down planes and machine guns like that. So they were traveling in this direction. The strike took place close to the border between Peru and Bolivia and Brazil, somewhere in this area. And they took out the 40 armored vehicles, the 250 Tren de Aragua gangsters. This was called Operation Iron Spear. I encourage you to watch that segment on the YouTube channel Fleet Signal. It really will do your heart good to see how strong the U.S. military is. And they were transporting their largest shipment of the year worth $1 billion, tons of cocaine and fentanyl. The CIA picked up on their encrypted communication several weeks ago. And the U.S. military and President Trump gave the go-ahead for them to put this operation together and to make the hit. And they coordinated multiple layers of the U.S. military, the greatest military in the history of the world, I think, to put all these 40 vehicles and 250 Tren de Aragua into a kill box and took them out. So President Trump is already hitting the cartels. And we have this. President Trump is also moving the U.S. Space Force from Colorado because Colorado went 100% to mail-in ballots for voting, which means their elections most likely will be fake. So President Trump pulled the U.S. Space Force from Colorado, and he's moving it to Huntsville, Alabama, where the city will be nicknamed Rocket City. So way to go, President Trump. And we had Coach Tommy Tuberville saying that, President Trump, yes, Tommy Tuberville put forth that the location, the Space Force in Huntsville, Alabama, should be named Donald J. Trump Space Command Center, Huntsville, Alabama. I always liked Tommy Tuberville. Now, I have this coming out from a Facebook friend, because let's be clear, the U.S. military is going to be fighting the cartels plus the CCP in China. And those 2 shipments that were intercepted yesterday came out of Shanghai, China. And we see the U.S. military now stopping all shipments into this area, and they also took out that cartel boat. So they're taking out anything coming in and going out. So effectively, the U.S. military has a blockade going on in the Caribbean. Now, I mentioned the CCP. So we have, you have Russia, China, India, a small country here, Nepal. And my Facebook friend sent this out because when you see nations prepping for military action, they often are going to be shutting down social media. And we see Nepal shutting down 26 social media platforms, including Facebook. They came out today. In Texas time, it would have been about 1 a.m. with an emergency notice that Nepal, the government of Nepal, is closing down 26 social media platforms, including Facebook. So my Facebook friend, he said, you can contact me now on email. So I got his email. So we'll see what's going on. But I put this forth. We definitely need to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.